Hello, BookTube. I have an old friend who runs a church here in Boston, and he's been emailing me all week, wondering if maybe we could get together one more time before the year ends, uh, and mentioning that he has something for me over at his church. And he emailed again last night with the same sentiment, and I told him I'm not really feeling particularly ambulatory, so I may have to just give it a miss. And he said, "Well, I'll pick you up. I have a whole bunch of errands to run. I've got the car. I'll pick you up, and I'll make sure that somebody drops you off. All you'll have to do is sit there." I thought, what's the harm in that? So I did. I went to the subway, the train station up the street, and he met me there and uh, brought me to his church. Said hi to his young assistant, who I've come to know pretty well, and the thing that he had for me, the thing that he had for me was an envelope, a sealed envelope. I opened it, and it was a card, a thank you card from one of his parishioners who recently, a couple of weeks ago, I did her a favor. I like to be useful. I like to do favors for his parishioners whenever I can. This is a woman that I know through his church. I like her quite well, and it was a thing I could really help with, and I just happened to know about it. I didn't stick my nose in her business. I just happened to know about it. It was no big deal at all. I think, just not objectively speaking, I think it probably made a situation easier for her, but it wasn't a big deal for me. So the fact that she would hand a sealed thank you card to her priest so that he could hand it to me seemed a little bit excessive, but she doesn't know who I am. Doesn't have any way to contact me. So I opened it, and it was a thank you card, but it also had money in it. A large amount of money. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And my friend was smiling, like the cat that caught the canary when he saw that, because he suspected that that was true. I told him, I'm not going to take money out of a church. So feel free to put this in the offertory box, but I'm not going to take it. And we hemmed and hawed and back and forth about that. I told him, doesn't your scripture have something about not letting the right hand know what the left hand is doing? Isn't there a passage there that you could quote to me about how I'm not supposed to glory in doing good works for other people? Uh, Eventually, we settled our hash that I would just give the money. I don't got to take money out of a church in front of a priest. Uh, but when we were finishing up, he said, "Well, your old friends are here." I knew exactly what he meant, because for years pre-COVID, he ran sort of a jumble sale, a regular thing event at his church. Beloved, people loved it, and a big element of that was books. He had parishioners dropping off books all the time. They felt wonderful doing it. They felt wonderful having a place. Just drop your books off at the church, and that'll be that. So he always invites me over to look over the books before the sale. There isn't any sale now, but the books still keep coming. So he said, "Your old friends are here," and we went, and I looked at the books, and I said, "Well, you know, are you absolutely sure?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, and are you sure about the ride? Because I can't carry even one book in the state that I'm in, much less a bunch of them." And he said, "Yes. Take as many as you want. Fill a crate. There's a wooden crate right there. Fill it to the top with books. Take a second crate if you need. And my assistant will bring you back home. You two are friends anyway." So I did that. I got a ton of books that I do not need. They were free. I rescued them. They would just sit there moldering, eaten by mice. If I hadn't done something with them, so I grabbed all the ones that I wanted, and I want to show them to you and talk about them a bit with you. And I also assembled props like a proper booktuber. I almost never assemble props. The first prop that I want to show you is something we've seen. We've seen all these things on this channel. This is The Mystery of the Cape Cod Tavern by Phoebe Atwood Taylor. This is an A.Z. Mayo murder mystery set in the 90s. She wrote these for about 20 years, from the 40s to the 60s, but they're set really in a little bit earlier, at least sentimentally, a little bit earlier time. It's an old Cape Cod. Those of you who don't know your Cape Cod, Boston, Massachusetts is a rectangle. It's the shape of a rectangle. But there's a fishhook extending out into the Atlantic Ocean, and that fishhook is Cape Cod. It's a great place, a wonderful place. I know every single blade of grass, every single deer, every single skunk, every single raccoon, every single grain of sand. I have been over every single inch of the Cape in every weather, in all kinds of heat and storms and rain, usually with a crowd of beagles, always with a crowd of friends, and it's been wonderful. I sober a little every time I think that I may never set foot on Cape Cod again. That is a sobering thought, because I'm not going to go and stay in a hotel now, am I? Cape Cod is a summer resort. And it has been for a while, although nowhere near to the ultra moneyed extremes that it is today. Although even today, it's not hard to find the real Cape Cod. The people who live there year round will always talk about the real Cape Cod, and you will never find year round Cape residents in more unison, no matter how old they are, no matter how long they've lived there. You'll never find them in more unison than on the simple statement, the Cape sure has changed. And you get that impression when you're reading these books. Phoebe Atwood Taylor was a wonderful, wonderful person, a wonderful writer, and she wrote these things at breakneck speed. But they're beautifully done, beautifully product, just delightful to read. They are delightful to read. And A.C. Mayo is not a cop, and he's not officially a detective. He's one of the omniscient, the wise old men of the Cape that used to be more ubiquitous. You can still find them. It used to be that you'd go to, an auto station or a drugstore, and they'd be one of these A.C. Mayo characters in the back somewhere who's seen everything and knows everything and remembers the big nor'easter of 18. Whatever. And Phoebe Atwood Taylor came up with a great idea of making one of those guys into an amateur sleuth who everybody goes to for help and who can solve all sorts of crimes and does. And I found this hardcover at the Brattle years ago. In January of 2019, I found this at the Brattle. And I love it because this is probably made. This book was published in the 1940s, 1934. This was published in 1934. I think this is the second A.C. Mayo book. And it's got the pulpy paper. It's a little hardcover, but it's as light as a feather. And when I found this, I might have even mentioned it in a video. I probably hauled it in 2019. We were talking in 2019. When I mentioned it in the video, I'm almost certain that I mentioned what I thought at the time, which is that I was hoping it was the tip of the iceberg. I was hoping that all of the A.C. Mayo books would show up in these cute little hardcovers. This used to be the only form that you could get a book. And you knew when you were getting a cheap mystery or a thriller or a sci-fi book because it had the pulpy paper. It was light as could be. I firmly believe that is at least in part where the term light reading came from. And the more scholarly tomes and the heavier books were on slightly better paper. And I was hoping that more of these would show up. They did not. This is the only one that I've ever seen at the Brattle. I will still keep my eyes open for it. But the reason why I was hoping they would show up is because all the A.C. Mayo murder mystery novels, there were like 30 of them, 25 of them, all of them had a paperback printing. But the paperback printing is really bad. It's noticeably bad. You have to be extremely delicate even to get through one reading. And I'm not delicate with my books. So every time I've gotten one of those mass market paperbacks, they had a very distinctive look, all white spined mass market paperbacks here in America. Pretty sure that the A.C. Mayo books have never been printed outside of America. And I'm pretty sure that Phoebe Atwood Taylor will never come back into print in any form. But I wanted these original hardcovers because I knew that the mass market paperbacks would not hold up, as careful as I would be. But then I was thinking, you said that same thing about the Judge D mysteries by Van Gulik. Those are also white spine mass market paperbacks. They also are a bit on the delicate side. Yours you managed to be careful enough with them. So I was on the fence one way or another, and then I saw The Mystery of the Cape Cod Players by Phoebe Atwood Taylor, the skunk coming out of the magician's hat. And this is it's Foul Play Press book. It's the Countryman Press in Woodstock, Vermont. I don't know. Mark would probably know if they're still in operation. These are not well made. You have to be delicate with them. See, that is resisting me, and that's just that, which means that you'd have to angle it just to read into. And if I were to open this all the way, that would crack wide open, like a pane of glass. But any port in the storm, better this than nothing. Especially since rereading this thing, the hardcover, really put me in the mind to read a lot of these. So I found The Mystery of the Cape Cod Players and Diplomatic Corpse and 3 Plots for A.C. Mayo. And the A.C. Mayo Trio, which has The Stars Spell Death, The Third Murderer, and Murder Rides the Gale. I found Out of Order, with the old-style register. I found Proof in the Pudding, with a typically hostile cat. I found Octagon House, a nice, big, thick thing from, I think, the 1960s. I think Octagon House was towards the end of the run. I think, like most murder mystery series, these things got longer as they went along. Oh, no. No, 1964, it looks like. Yeah, okay. I found Criminal COD, Cash on Delivery, but also the pun on cod, on the cod that made the entire economy of Cape Cod. Then Sandbar Sinister, another pun in the title of Bar Sinister. Going, Gone, which I think I remember. It's got books on the cover. I think I remember that being important. Banbury Bog, which I do have. This is the only mass market paperback that I have somewhere here at Hyde Cottage. Now I have a double of it. I found Punch with Care, a ticket, but also the pun in the title. I found Death Lights a Candle, which I remember being one of my favorite A.C. Mayo mysteries, also nice and long. Does this have a... See, I don't know if you can hear it, but these are making cracking noises as it is. 1960. Oh, these are delicate. Very delicate. But they were free. So, I found Spring Harrowing. I found A Perennial Border. And finally, I found The Amulet of Guilt, which is, I believe, an early A.C. Mayo story. 1938? Well, anyway, no possibility of doing a Steve pyramid, but I found, in other words, I found an enormous number of Phoebe Atwood Taylor A.C. Mayo novels. None of them in this little hardcover. What I wouldn't give, but it didn't happen. But I do have them now. I don't think I have any of these as ebooks, and I don't think they've ever been reprinted. So I'm glad to have them. I will be as careful as I can. I'm not particularly good with books, but I will try. This next one is a trade paperback. This is something that I have recommended and given away to so many people that as soon as I saw it, I realized, no, the chances of you having a copy are virtually nil. You just grab it, you'll give it away, but you'll find it again. This is by Margot Kaufman, and it is Clara, The Early Years. And it's one of the best dog books that I've ever read. It's all about the irrepressible Clara, who loves pig's ears and having her own way and snoring, and who is an absolute delight. Margot Kaufman is hilarious. I mean, even when she's not writing about Clara's antics in this book, she's still hilarious, writing about everything. And one of the reasons why this is a dog book that I've given to so many people over the years is because it doesn't, like so many dog books do, end in tragedy. It doesn't leave you sad. Clara is still going strong at the end of this book, still demanding that she get her own way in everything. Utterly delightful. So happy to find it. Then this next one, I have a prop for. I found this thing. No idea why I grabbed it, except that I didn't like the idea of it just moldering in the basement, although it's going to molder here, unless one of you wants it. This is Antonia Fraser's great book, Mary Queen of Scots, her big biography. This says 40th anniversary edition. This is an ugly edition, but this is her big biography of Mary Queen of Scots. And my prop is this, the hardcover that I fell in love with. I have read this book so many times. There is our author when she was a very fetching younger woman. And this is terrific, absolutely terrific. From right on the doorstep of the 1970s, just an absorbing, wonderful, full-dress biography. I love it. I got the old mass market paperback with the red edges to the pages and read it literally until it fell apart. Not hard for me. It fell apart fairly readily, but still, I read it lovingly. I don't know why I grabbed this, but I did. So I now have a trade paperback as well as the hardcover. Then the next one is another trade paperback. This is Don Winslow. I love this author. This is his book, The Border. He writes modern crime. They're big and rich and textured. The only author that I can really compare him to, other than maybe James Ellroy, he doesn't have quite James Ellroy's intelligence or virtuosity, but maybe that in terms of elevating crime novel, thriller novel, that sort of action novel, that sort of thing, to a higher level of artistic capability. James Ellroy does that. And so does Don Winslow. The only other writer I could really think of who does that is Greg Iles. Don Winslow and Greg Iles are similar in many, many ways. This is a big novel about the war on drugs on the southern border. And it's hard to describe Don Winslow if you have not tried him and you're interested in that sort of thing. Novels where brutality will happen. Like, for instance, imagine a better written version of Cormac McCarthy. A better written, more narratively responsible, less showboaty. Then you would get something like Don Winslow, and any of his books are worth your time. I don't have any. I didn't. As soon as I saw this, I realized I don't have any of them in print books. I have, I think, a couple of ebooks. Then we have the hardcovers, including this first one. This is Fairfax Press. I'd never seen this edition before. This is Bruce Catton's Civil War. This is 3 volumes in one book: Mr. Lincoln's Army, Glory Road, and the great volume of Stillness and Appomattox. And it says right on there, they're complete and unabridged. This is just all of them in one book. Print's a little bit on the small side, but that is, I've never seen this Bruce Catton edition before, so that's fantastic. Very glad to have it. I don't actually have a copy of the first 2 books there. I have a copy of Stillness and Appomattox on the shelf all by itself, but the other 2 I don't have at all, so happy to get this, absolutely, since it was free. Then this next one, a little bit BookTube prompted. I was watching a video by Olive, at a Book Olive. She did a video about classic books that she wants to read in 2022, and one of them was an H.G. Wells novel. And that immediately made me think about the old running press anthology of H.G. Wells. He's one of those authors where he's been in print for a century. He changed the entire face of the genre where he wrote. He wrote half a dozen books that everybody knows, and yet the books are so short that you can put them all in one volume easily. And I showed you on this channel, there was was it Fall River Press? I think it was wasn't Running Books. It was Fall River Press. Did a great, beautiful, big hardcover collection of those 6 books. Can I name them without looking at this thing? The Food of the Gods, First Men in the Moon, The Invisible Man, The Time Machine, War of the Worlds, and what's the 6th one? Food of the Gods, First Man in the Moon, War of the Worlds, Invisible Man, The Time Machine, and let's find out. Let's find out what it is, because that's what I got here. In the Days of the Comet. Okay, I found this. This is not that Fall River. Still a pretty thing though, and everything is double column, which is a little touch that I like. This will certainly do. The minute I watched that Olive video, the minute I watched that Olive video, I realized that I didn't have any hardcover anthology of H.G. Wells. Usually I have a couple of them. I have some Penguin Classics of individual works, but I also like a big anthology if I can get one. And I've seen quite a few of them. So this was free. It was literally, I barely picked it up at all. The most exertion attached to these books is making this video by a wide margin. My young friend put them in the crate. My young friend brought the crate to the car. My young friend brought the car here. My young friend brought them upstairs. So I had nothing to do with the exertion here, which means that I am free to look for another H.G. Wells anthology. Next one I see, if it's nice and attractive. This one is too, though, so I didn't mind. This next one is the 3rd volume in a trilogy, and I have props. I have props for it. I've had this a few times. I keep giving it away. This is Edmund Morris. This is the third volume in his biography of Theodore Roosevelt. And this is the years after the White House. So he was always called the Colonel. Even when he was president, people still called him the Colonel. And this is his years after the White House. It's a beautifully done thing, really, really solid, high-quality paper, illustrations all throughout, the deckled edges. Possibly my least favorite of the three, mainly because of the drubbing that William Howard Taft comes in for, predictably enough. But this will go with the other two volumes that I assembled here as props. The middle volume, Theodore Rex, about his time in the Oval Office, which is great. A great presidential biography. And The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt, which is also really, really interesting. You wouldn't think so, but Roosevelt led a fascinating life pretty much from childhood on. And now I just have the whole set right there, which is great. I don't know how long I'll hold on to it, but I will try. Roosevelt had a fascinating... You wouldn't think The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt would be all that interesting, but it is. He remade himself as a weak, asthmatic boy. He remade himself with the encouragement of his father into being stronger, into being the epitome of what he would later call vigorous living. And then everything, the unspeakable tragedy of losing his mother and his wife in the same house, in the same hour, running literally from one room to the next. His adventures as a dude rancher, his adventures as commissioner of police in New York City and as a freshman congressman and in the McKinley administration. All of that is in that book, and it's all fascinating. The beginning of his friendship with people like Elihu Root or William Howard Taft. Theodore Rex is the one volume to get if you're going to get one volume of that book, but I think Morris is at the peak of his game in these books, so I was happy to find it. And then the last thing that we'll do here is the last hardcover is the biggest one, and the find of the day, and I have a prop for it. It's this thing. It's Langdon Hammer's biography of the poet James Merrill. And this is a hardcover, and I have for years had this thing. Which is the advance copy. As you can see, it has all of the reviews, all of the James Merrill type stuff, anything like that I put in here. I got this years ago. When did this come out? 2015. So before we were talking to each other. I got this years ago from Knopf and just expected that when the time came, they would send a finished copy. Aside from Oxford University Press, virtually every major publisher just routinely does that. If they put you on a list for the advance copy, they automatically put you on the list for the hardcover. They just assume that if you're a reviewer, you're going to want it. And yet, for some odd reason, I never got a hardcover of this book, and I love it. I think it was number one on my biography list that year. I'm also very fond of its subject. And I told myself, well, sooner or later, the Brattle will provide. Sooner or later, you will see a hardcover of that book. And it wasn't the Brattle this time around. It was just a random pile of books. This is going to require a little bit of effort to save, but I am determined to save it. It has one of these library plastic dust jackets on it, and underneath the dust jacket, it has this label attached to the paper dust jacket of the book. That label obviously has to come off. Also, on the front, it has this old barcode, which once it was de-accessed from the library, someone scribbled over the barcode in magic marker and then put the cover over it. That has to come off too. I don't want stickers on this book at all. So the first step is to gently detach the whole of the cover from the book. And then once I've got it gently detached from the book, step 2 will be to very gently slide the actual dust jacket of the book out of the plastic cover. Once I have the dust jacket of the book out of the plastic cover, free and clear to maneuver, I can get those stickers off and all the markings off it. And once the cover of the book is free from the plastic, I can also get that marker off, so that I will be left with just a pristine plastic cover and just a pristine cover of the book. I'll slide the cover of the book back in the plastic and reattach the plastic to the book. It's a bit of a project, but oh my, is it worth it? Because I've wanted this in hardcover forever. Since 2015, not forever then, but a long time, 7 years. So now I can finally retire this thing. I will just take all of the reviews and whatnots out of it, reread them, of course, and then just put them in this hardcover. and retire the trade paperback, retire the advanced copy forever. So there you go. That was a totally, totally unnecessary and also unwise, I'm perfectly willing to admit that, just a totally unnecessary glut of books that came my way. I thought I would share them with you. I'm not going to do a Steve Pyramid. This is just sitting upright is my equivalent of a Steve Pyramid for right now. But I will be back. I just wanted to show you all these things, all these books that I don't need at all. And technically, I guess, the fact that I didn't pay for any of them means they're compliant with Satan Ollie's, with Criminali's satanic challenge. You may have seen on his channel and on other channels where you read 100 of the books you have in your own possession before you buy a single other new book. And in the midst of that challenge, you have the gall to do a book haul. I facetiously said, as soon as I saw that the Steve version of that challenge, not satanic but saintly, the saintly Steve version of that challenge would be buy 100 books before you read one of your own. But this technically complies. I didn't pay for any of these things. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.